talk about now. So Erica, now you're back. Do you mind introducing yourself quickly?
Yeah. My name is Erica Cenci, and I'm a career coach who works with athletes as they transition out of athletics. And I'm a former swimmer, having retired probably 10 years ago. I actually am kind of re-entering the sport in a very different way. So I'm kind of seeing my athletic identity kind of from that perspective, and then where I'm at now, kind of re-entering the sport, doing something different, but working with having undergone that transition and the difficulties, and just doing the career coaching and life coaching that I do, realize there's a big gap, I think, in services around talking about athletic identity and preparing, you know, how do we proactively prepare for something that comes, you know, so abruptly for so many, but also, you know, is a very transformative period in our lives. So, you know, just spend a lot of time working with athletes on that. And then, you know, just trying to help as many as possible through that process.
Great. So. And definitely everybody that's listening, make sure you check out those ladies' profiles, you know, follow them for more information. And I think we're going to start off by talking a little bit about your personal experiences, and then tying in the experiences you've had working with other athletes. Because, you know, Erica, you've said it, we're working a lot towards other things as an athlete, but nobody really educates us about what happens the moment you quit. Right. And there's a lot of effects from an emotional point of view, psychological point of view, a fitness point of view, and many other parts. Right. So I'd like to start with you, Annette, because obviously you had an interesting case of retiring 3 times. What did you notice? What sort of were the recurring effects of all 3 retirements where you would say, okay, this is something, if you're an athlete, you can expect this to happen?
Well, you know, when I retired, you hit the age right spot on. I was 34, and I had reached a big dream. I was playing at the 2000 Olympics, and it was sort of the culmination of a 25-year dream. And after day 3 of the Olympics, I was out, and then it was like, oh, it's over, because I had decided I was going to retire. And it's, you know, you sort of think you're ready. And I was looking forward to the main thing was just having freedom to do other things. You know, I had been so tied into my sport. It's like a marriage, and it's like, okay, this is, you know what you're doing. And I was like, wow, I've got choices in what I do. But then the reality was like, well, you know, what do I choose to do? And I had ideas about that, and but just didn't have that same belief I had in myself as an athlete. And you know, I think that's a big part of it, having a belief in yourself outside of sport. You know yourself in sport, you know what to do and the people to look for, and suddenly you're without that self-belief, without you know, knowing what to do, without a team. And so I drifted in different areas, and then I just had an opportunity. I was still playing sport at the national level, and was still competitive. And I got asked to go on the world tour, and I thought, well, why not? You know, I'm still got the ability, and I actually had one of my best years on the tour. But at the end of that year, as it sort of started to fade away, you know, I had highs and lows. I just thought, no, it's time to do other things, and I retired fully from national and international. And it was really more like, there's just got to, you know, question is like, there's got to be more to life than just playing sport. And I pursued, I had a degree in physiotherapy, but it wasn't my passion. And I think as athletes, you know, we follow our passion. And so that, again, I just wasn't being fulfilled. And when I went back to sport, went back to beach volleyball, it was just on the national tour, and I was 40 by this time. And but then I started to, I went to some seminars, and this is what I think is a big thing, is to start educating myself about personal development, how I could be the best that I could be. But the mentor and trainer was, you know, talking about the future, and I really hadn't thought much about the future in the way of really dreaming about it, setting new goals, and getting excited about it. And from there on, my life changed. You know, I really started setting big hairy goals that excited me, and started to address my belief in myself to achieve those goals. And it really was through educating myself and looking to continually improve myself and develop myself.
Yeah. And we definitely want to hit on that educational side of it later on. But Lina, so what was your sort of first month after retiring like? Share with us, what did you go through? How did it feel?
Sometimes when you retire, you actually don't know that you've retired. And I think this is a part that we all face. Sometimes we feel that retirement, if we think about it as an athlete and you're actively pursuing your goals, you feel that retirement is actually giving up because, and that's very hard to address because you're thinking, did I achieve everything I set out to achieve? In my case, I think you mentioned very early in the conversation, the point about identity. And that's a huge piece. When I was 5 years old, I remember watching the Olympic torch being passed and going through my street in Bulgaria. Wow. And seeing that, made a huge impression on me. So I started wrapping my whole identity as a young girl first, and then as a woman into this, I'm going to play in the Olympics. Now I had to give that dream up when I thought I had to give it up. And I actually gave it up when I came to the United States and started playing in college here. I knew that there was probably not a way back for me to go back to Bulgaria, rejoin the national team, and go to the Olympics that way. But lucky for me, beach volleyball became an Olympic sport. So I said, I just need one more person, and then I can do it. And I looked around, where's that one more person? It's my sister. Okay, let's do it. So I got to sort of reignite that whole dream. But once, and my sister and I, we went on and played actually with Annette for many, many years. And once I reached that point of achieving that dream to play in the Olympics, I remember that there were times in the beginning when I couldn't wait to get on the next plane. It's like, I don't care where I'm going, just put me on a plane, I'm going to play. But then towards the end, there were things that I was thinking about doing that I couldn't do because I was still playing. So I started making a list of the things that I would be doing if I wasn't playing beach volleyball anymore. And that list continued to grow. So actually, when I retired, I looked at that list and I said, well, now I can go do this, I can go do this. And that was kind of a lucky thing that I did, but I think it's a very helpful thing for athletes who are thinking about retiring to think about, just like Annette, what she said, setting some other goals in your life. So I think we're losing Susan with her internet. Let's take over as host. We
have
and ask
control.
Erica. That's right. Ask Erica. Erica, how about you?
So for me, what you guys said rang true about the identity and pouring kind of everything into it. I think what was interesting about me is I was ready to be done. I couldn't wait to be done. And I went to NCAAs in college, and I remember, okay, swimming's over. Like that's all we're going to do at this point. And I think it took about 6 months to a year probably afterwards to realize, oh, I hadn't been feeling that passion that you were talking about. I hadn't been fulfilling that void that was left by not swimming anymore. And had kind of started working full time. And I think a lot of the athletes I work with and talk to now, it's not so much immediately right afterwards, because there's a newness to it also that you're kind of trying to figure stuff out for some of them, not all of them, but there's a little bit of that. It's a long transition period for some, especially if it isn't, it's something you've kind of seen on the horizon with graduating from college and maybe not anticipating playing professional sports, or, as you play pro sports, that you can kind of see it coming, but you don't really want to address it. And then you kind of find your way through for a little bit, like it's the off season almost. And then there's that period afterwards. So just for me, it was, I was really excited about it. And then it kind of hit a little bit later of this is real life. This is my real life now. And, not having that structure of, the daily practices and the weight room and all of those different pieces that were structuring my life, or, at the time, you have to find a way to deal with it or replace it with something. And I think that for me was a big challenge as well. Just kind of having to go through all of that. So,
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Over until
Hi,
the
Ryan.
season gets it all back together. Just remind me, because I mean I'm there on the side. I'm kind of listening, but I'm not totally in. We're handling what are the common things that could come up, the side effects of retiring as a pro athlete right now.
Yeah, we were just talking a little bit about our experiences with it, and then I think a little bit of that too, just kind of what kind of comes from that after you are retiring.
Yeah. All right, cool. So, I mean, let's go a little bit more into that, because I have some friends that have retired, and I know that one of the things that you could find yourself so lost, right? Because you've trained as an athlete, like you talked about already, for so long, and you just kind of feel like, all right, where's that ball that I need to play with, or whatever I did, ball I need to hit, whatever. You can feel kind of lost. So education is one of those things that I know a few athletes have continued after athletics, like after their pro career. Some do it during, and I really hope that a lot start doing that more often, using like massive open online courses, which is something that would be great to talk about if any of you had experience with. But what's your experience with athletes that may have learned one thing in school, right? Played their athletic career and then found themselves just thinking, that's definitely not what I want to do. How do I take steps forward to towards whatever I do want to do? And Lina or Annette, you haven't gone for a while. You want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. And a few thoughts crossed my mind with that. One is, for me, I had a physiotherapy degree, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to do, get into sports media or sports marketing. But at that time, and this was early 2000, I didn't want to enroll in the study of it. I did some marketing certificates, but I didn't invest myself into it fully to pursue that dream, thinking it's like, well, I've done my study, and I just basically used it as an excuse not to really get into that. I tried to get in through a side door and everything, and I look back and think, wow, if I really had wanted to do that, I would have taken steps, invested in myself, and gotten the education so I could do it easily and find that pathway. It took me a lot of years and fell more into some informal education through personal development, and did a number of courses that helped me to then qualify with NLP. And so, and I see that with other athletes. The other thought that came through was, I worked with an athlete, and he was going through some depression and wondering what to do with his life after sport. And the thing that was holding him back was his self-belief that he was actually stupid. He'd basically put himself in this box, and we talk about identity of being an athlete. And because he hadn't pursued study and everything, he thought, well, that he was stupid. He hadn't gotten good feedback from teachers and everything. So he was holding himself back from pursuing what it was he really wanted to do. And we worked with that, worked with his belief about that. And it's like, no, it's not about being stupid or not. It's just about finding the education. Everyone can learn. And once we broke through that, he started stepping up to opportunities. And so it's just knowing that, you may not have the knowledge, you may not have the skills, but you always have the ability to go and find them.
Yeah. And I think that's a really critical point of that psychological barrier of not being able to break out of that box that you've been in for so long, right? It's a regimen, right? And you have coaches telling you what to do. People set up training plans for you. And all of a sudden there's this vacuum and you have to fill it, right? You have to manage your own time. You have to manage your fitness. I mean, I've actually read an interesting study recently that professional athletes, once they retire, oftentimes have problems staying fit, because they're no longer competing, so they don't know what they're training for. So I don't know, and I'm getting some likes here, so maybe there's some retired athletes that are saying, yep. So maybe, obviously you can go into different things, but I think it's just an analogy for every other aspect of your life, right? Where you've been under such pressure to perform and live up to other people's expectations as an athlete, and all of a sudden you have to ask yourself, well, what do I want? What's my life goal, right? So I would like to ask you three, what are the questions that athletes should really be asking themselves when they're looking at, plans after a professional life?
That's a great question.
Erica, do you want to start?
Yeah. So I think, when you look at, I think, like you said, there's always, the education and the different things you can fall back on. But I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is that passion and being able to find some of those interests. And because ultimately, you can get trained on almost anything and build the skill set you need to do a lot of different things. But really especially for athletes, to be at an elite level in your sport, there's got to be some emotion in it. There's got to be some passion. And so how do you find that and connect with that outside of athletics? And I think that is such a huge piece. And one of the ways that, I'll work with people to do, or even for myself, is just paying attention to what interests me in general and being able to keep track of that for a while. And that's a very simple way of starting to go, or just paying attention and being a little bit more mindful about some of those things that you are really passionate about or do have interest in exploring all the different activities. So covering a number of different areas to be able to just try new things. And I think it's a little bit hard as an athlete or someone that's been really good at one thing for a really long time. I've found personally trying something new is really difficult because I'm learning it again or learning something new, and I'm terrible at it usually the first time. And I think coming from, a background where you're really good at one thing, that can be a challenge. So I think it's adopting a perspective and a mindset of exploring. It's like I have a 2-year-old and teaching her how to do things and watching her learn. She's not hard on herself when she falls down because she's learning how to walk, and it's kind of that. I've kind of tried to adopt that metaphor in my post-athletic lifestyle a little bit, as far as how to look at some of these things and learning and finding new areas of interest to then build skill sets and what really you can connect with. And I think that connection piece is probably the biggest in my experience, as far as really being able to move forward in something new.
Yeah, definitely. And just to touch on one point on this exploration, to give like a very simple exercise is to log what you're reading. So when you're taking out your mobile or your laptop or maybe even a book, who knows, what are you reading? Like, are you reading tech stuff? Are you reading things about nutrition? What are your interests that might be connected to your sport, but are sort of tangents of that you could explore after your professional career? So that would be a very easy thing to do just for a week. Just look at your mobile. Okay, what articles have I been reading? What did I like on Facebook? What is that sort of about, right? So Lina, what other questions could you ask yourself? And Ryan also asked, when should you start asking yourself these questions?
I think you should start asking very, very early on. I mean, you should never actually stop, or even just thinking from college. The most important question I think you should ask is, what is most important to me? And that little piece at the end, the me piece, you have to be open that keeps evolving. So at one point, me or I or what was important to me could have been one thing. Then you have to allow yourself to grow and see what else is important to me. So this is one of the things that I had to go through and very early on figure out, my values. Really, what is the most important to me? And then what do I do to support it? Just like Simon Sinek said, what is your why? What will motivate you on a daily basis? And then how are you going, or what are you going to do to support that? And very early on, right after I graduated from college, I started in the corporate world. So I had a degree in biology and joined the vitamin company. And I thought, this is really what I want to do. Well, after going, 2 months, 9 to 5, I realized that this is going to drive me crazy. And it was actually a real motivator to get out and try to be a professional athlete, no matter what the cost was at that time, because I felt like being stuck in that mold of the corporate world was not for me. So sometimes you're going to try things that are not for you to figure out what really is you. And look at those experiences, like you guys said, not as something to be hard on yourself about, but to really take it as information and bits. Every experience is a stepping stone towards your next experience. And there's really no end to that.
Exactly. Annette, do you have anything to say?
Absolutely. I mean, there are the whole, planning for life after sport is, like you talked about, a log, and constantly asking questions. The quality of your life is in proportion to the quality of the questions you ask. And Lina's questions are absolutely great. They're such a good foundation. And then it's going, deeper, breaking it down. And ones that come to mind is to look for, as well as looking at what you enjoy, but also looking at your strengths. What have you found over time? Are you good at? Obviously, you're good at sport, but what about it? What about the sport were you good at? Was it the particular tactics? Are you a good thinker? Was it the leadership? Those sort of qualities. Think about those qualities that you have. You can also get clues from your schooling. What sort of subjects did you like? What did you excel at? And you can also ask your friends, what do they think that you are good at? What sort of subjects? And so you can start to look at how could you then apply those skills and those interests to doing something in your life after sport, and finding something that fulfills you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important what you said here about asking others. So reaching out to your network and asking for feedback, because oftentimes we look at ourselves and we perceive ourselves very differently than others might, right? And they might say, "Oh, you're a great speaker. You should, think about, speaking about what you've experienced," and you might have never thought of that because you don't look at yourself that way. You look at yourself as an athlete, as a performer, as a competitor. And I think that's vital. The other thing I wanted to touch upon is that as an athlete, when you're you're injured, or you can see that maybe there's not the best contracts coming in. So you're asking yourself, am I going to do this for another year? Should I really be thinking about something else? A lot of athletes are looking to stay in the sport. So they're naturally turning to coaching. They're looking into doing agent work. They're looking into staying somehow connected to the sport. Now, my question, very open-ended, is that a good or a bad thing?
Okay, I'll start. It really depends on how many pieces of that me puzzle have you been able to put together. If that sport is something that you can see yourself doing when you're 50 or 60 years old and deriving the same kind of validation and also passion out of it, then go for it. That's exactly what you want to do. We are always going to be competitive. So putting ourselves in the situations where we're going to find healthy ways of satisfying that competitive drive is great. Another avenue to go from sport is to go into business. And I want to contrast my experience, going from the corporate world, realizing that that's not me. I wanted to go completely on my own, be my own boss, start being an entrepreneur. That's going, the other extreme. So it really is about taking steps to experience different things. Going and staying with your sport, for example, that was not something that I wanted to choose. I saw a big world out there that I wanted to explore. Going back to me, what's most important to me.
Yeah. And I think it's a question of whether you are looking for something that makes you feel comfortable from the get-go, or you want to challenge yourself and grow into something.
Well, I just add on to that. Right? I think to your point of, is there anything missing? I think if you feel like something's missing and you need to, like you were saying, you felt like you needed to go explore some other areas, there was obviously something missing, you needed to go explore some other. How do you kind of navigate that and kind of explore that further? And I think that's, that's a big part of it too. But I think it comes down to the individual. Definitely. Really, if there's no passion missing, then you don't necessarily feel like you need to go do something else, right? But I think for everybody, sometimes it is. I think for some people, it's an easier choice because they don't, maybe there's a little bit of you're a little afraid to go out and to be a little uncomfortable. And I think, it's different for everybody.
Yeah. Definitely. We have a question here about getting into business in terms of starting up your own business, I think, and entrepreneurship. And there's been some great articles out recently by Ernst & Young of how competitive athletes are better equipped for leadership positions, for example. And one resource I want to give, since we're all women in this panel right now, there's a wonderful mentorship program established by Ernst & Young. I think it's called the Women Athletes Network, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but basically every female athlete can apply to become a mentee in this program, and you will be matched with a former professional athlete that is now a business, successful business person, and they will mentor you for 1 year. So it's a very good program to apply to if you're looking to become an entrepreneur or just need business advice, because it's a very tight network. And obviously Ernst & Young is a big consulting company. So it's a great place to connect. So my question was, do you have resources for athletes that want to venture out into entrepreneurship, and what could maybe be the competitive advantage since you are an athlete?
Yeah, sure. And I sort of think
Annette,
about the different sports lend itself to entrepreneurship. I think, a lot of the individual sports, I think, I see a lot of beach volleyballers getting into being entrepreneurs, because you have to be entrepreneurial in a way to succeed at beach volleyball, because you're managing yourself a lot of the times. You've got a small team around you, and you in a way are in charge of that team around you, the coaches that you get, etc. And so that in a way it becomes a business, whereas sometimes from team sports everything is done for you, and you sort of step in and you're advised where to go, and where to be and what to do, and then that lends itself more to being an entrepreneur or working with the company, because that skill set that you have. And so it's identifying it, whether you have those entrepreneurial abilities, that ability to sort of see the vision of a business, to have the outline, how to put it together. You want the big picture as well as being able to put the small picture together. With regards to resources, it's like networking. I know a lot of us met through LinkedIn, which is more a professional network versus the social Facebook and Twitter, that kind of thing. And there's so many resources there in the way of books and everything. I recommend Success Beyond Sport, obviously, because it is an entrepreneurial guidebook in how to start thinking about you as a business and as a team, or building that team around you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I can only underline LinkedIn as a great platform. I think professional athletes should have a profile on LinkedIn, just because it's a way, when you're still active, to get in touch with potential sponsors, endorsement deals. There's a lot of coaches and club managers that are on there. There's even specific groups for athletes on LinkedIn now. It's become really a platform for athletes because there's nothing else out there, right? I mean, if we're talking about non-sport specific platforms, there's really nothing for athletes to showcase themselves beyond just the athletic skills, right? So LinkedIn is the place to go to. Lina, what else would you recommend in terms of resources? Where can people start? Going away from this blab now, and they're super motivated to start exploring.
That's a great question. And I think we mentioned some of the open source classes that you can start taking on business skills, training yourself to be a business person if you're looking to become an entrepreneur. Yeah. And I contrasted my two experiences from the corporate world to an entrepreneur. And I have to underline that it's very, very important to really think about and do a lot of research before you jump into something. Because if you have money, or if you don't have your own money to invest into a business, it's very alluring and on the front end to think that you're a CEO of this new company, you're a business owner. And if you don't have the right people around you to guide you, or you don't ask the right questions, very quickly those experiences can turn sour. In my experience, and when I've worked with other athletes, I see that one of the hybrids between those two worlds, say the corporate world and the entrepreneurial world, is franchising. The way franchising is attractive to athletes is because you're actually jumping into a proven system that's already been tested by somebody else. and it's working. So as an athlete, you kind of, our mentality lends itself to follow the prescribed regimen, just like you had a training regimen. Now you can follow these steps and experience what it's like to be a business owner. From there, you could decide that this is really what I want to do. I want to have a team around me that already knows what they're doing and I can learn from them. Or once you do that for a few years, you can decide that now I have a bright idea and I know how to run a business, and then invest into running your own business. So I think franchising is kind of a good way to start.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to think about it, and probably something not a lot of athletes are considering. Just before we hear Erica's approaches and resources, I just want to mention that we'd love for you to share this. If you like what you're hearing, if you want to ask questions, type /Q, so we will see them over here in our question box. We have about 20 minutes left, so we can take a couple of questions while we're continuing our conversation. And if you do like what you're seeing and hearing, then you can click that little button over there and share the last 30 seconds of video, actually, so people can actually see on Twitter or Facebook what we're up to and join live. And if they're not live, obviously, high replay. We're also here for you. You just can't ask questions, sorry. So Erica, back to that question. What are some resources that you would recommend for athletes to start exploring their
proposed career plans? I would say, I like to just, I think even there, there's a number of them online, but I think just doing a lot of self-reflection is a good place to start. And just figuring out kind of who you are and what you're interested in, a lot of the things we've been talking about before. I think with regards to the entrepreneurship thing, there's a organization called SCORE that is, I believe, nationwide, but has a lot of, for people really looking to go down that path, have no idea how to start as far as where to business plans or what they're interested in doing, franchising, non-franchising, all those options. There's, I believe that's a really good organization as far as getting resources. They'll work with you one-on-one and they're free to help kind of build on what your ideas are even, and help kind of structure them or do some of that initial research to figure out if it's a viable business. And I think, reading a lot, and like you said, kind of going on LinkedIn and following, LinkedIn Pulse and all the different articles that come through. Gosh, those I feel like are so helpful. There's so many different tips and so many different articles written out there by people like you and I and everybody that, have been kind of working on this network. And just, I think those kind of allow this self-exploration to start, even kind of dig in further. There's a lot of good ideas that kind of come from those as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
definitely. I wanted to mention one more US specific network. It's called Access Athletes. And they are a platform for former collegiate athletes, but I think you can also go there if you're a professional athlete. And they're connecting you to businesses that also have former athletes in their management ranks, and they're looking to hire athletes. So they actually go to job fairs and they organize virtual conferences, and it's a great tool, but unfortunately it's not global, so it's US specific. And this is leading to one of the questions here. Do you all know of any conferences where athletes get together to discuss transition? First off, I would say this one, which is honestly, I've been doing a lot of research. Ryan has been doing a lot of research. The three of you have been doing research on this topic, and I'm sure we can agree there is no conference that is put together on this particular topic of athlete transition.
I went to one in 2009 when I was, I was getting into my topic and researching it, and got invited to the Athlete Transition and Retirement Conference in San Diego, and it was organized by Scott Tinley. He actually was sort of created a course and studying it, and it was going to become an annual thing, and it never recurred after that. And since that time I've seen this topic, and it's been something dear to my heart, but I've seen people come and go, and it's an interesting one because people know it's a challenge, and people talk about it, but it's sort of often just, it sort of goes in highs and lows and doesn't really sort of take off to create the kind kind of movement that it needs. And I would love to see a actual conference, where people get together and discuss about it, maybe because people get into their transition and they move on. And so it's, the people that are interested in it. So, something like this is great because, we can connect from afar. I'm in Hawaii, you're in Europe, and we can all join in easily.
Mm-hmm. I would just jump onto that too. I was just thinking
Definitely.
about, I think we're starting to see more of the players associations of different sports also trying to get involved in like the USOC in some ways. Granted, it's not necessarily a forum for discussion always, but I think we are starting to see more of those organizations kind of coming together and trying, like you said, trying to get things in the works. So that might be another place to start if someone isn't sure where to go look, is to start with your local organization or players association, at least for some resources to point you in a different direction if you're not sure.
Just this last, go ahead.
Definitely. And I just wanted to add that the IOC also has a athlete transition program for those of you that are Olympic athletes. So they actually do have a program. And I met with them in a conference in Switzerland last year. And the interesting thing was that nobody knew about it. So they're terrible at marketing it. It obviously exists. And they have wonderful speakers on. They're actually working with Adecco, which is a recruitment and consulting company. So they go worldwide, globally, and they give free coaching sessions, CV prepping, interview classes for all Olympic athletes. But apparently not a lot of them are using it. So if you are an Olympic athlete, reach out to the IOC, however you might do that.
I wanted to say something real quick.
Lina, you wanted to say
with their
something.
Women Athlete Business Network, that's obviously very targeted to female athletes. But I think that, there was a discussion last fall in New York, and I did a lot of research to put a model together of how we could have specifically business skills for athletes and how we could administer that from a local perspective, and then also make it a global organization where we can exchange ideas across the globe. So I think, like you guys were saying, a lot of people are trying different things. There hasn't been a model that has stuck. One of the challenges that I see is that there's this gender separation between, trying to promote female athletes or different organizations, or, are we going to make it just male athletes? And from my experience in athletics, I grew up in a communist country where actually the gender roles were completely equal. And I know what that feels like. And I know that, Susan, you do too, where the funding is completely equal, the coaching, the resources is completely equal. And I see no problem. And I don't see actually why it needs to be a separate issue. I think that we can learn from each other and have a common platform that will take us all a lot further.
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. I'm just going to have a look here quickly through the questions if we have any of them unanswered. There was one question about the franchise. How hard is it to get started, and when do I have time before I retire? Oh, so I guess asking about the point of entry.
Really, actually, that's the smoothest transition that you can have going into business, because there's already a protocol. And like I mentioned, if you're an athlete that likes to follow steps and to be a part of a team, but you also want to explore the possibility of being in business for yourself, this is really the smoothest thing that you can do. And you can start at any time. You can start while you're still playing, because you could actually ramp up the business or scale it down. And I think that's why franchising affords you. You take certain steps, and it's very easy to get started, and then you could follow the protocol. You follow these steps, and these are the results that you get, and they work in most countries. It's actually throughout the world. I think there are now regulations that allow you to practice business in most countries around the world through franchising.
Interesting. I want to bring it back one more time to, the active players or athletes that are now listening, thinking, why do I need this? You know, like this is so far ahead. This might happen to me in 5 years, and I have plenty of time. 5 years is a lifeline in athletic terms. I want to sort of make a pledge. Why should they start now? Like, why is it so important to not get yourself into the situation of going into this vacuum, having a depression, or just figuring out who you are besides a sport? Why should people get started now so that when their situation like getting fired, being injured, or being thrown off a team with 6 months left in the season, then and they have to figure out what to do, then why should they be starting now?
And people sort of, I've heard some people think, well, I don't want to think about that because they might manifest it in some way. That's like, I don't want to think that, yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, I'm going to expect the best, but expect the best and plan for the worst. And it's about just having another plan that happens that you can sort of slide into that, wherever that's happening at the same time. Because I think of a J curve, the exponential curve, that things take time to develop. As an athlete career, it takes a time to develop the skills to get to a level where you're creating success and getting results, and suddenly you look like that overnight success is like came out of nowhere, but that was built over time. And so if you wait till you finish your career and then start something new, it's going to take a long time to set off. And so if you can start doing that and have two curves sort of going at the same time, it means that as you're creating success in your sport, you're also then creating success or starting to develop the foundation that you can step into as you go out of sport. If there's education to be done, you're going to be doing that while you're playing sport. Find the time, whether it's a night course or just reading books and that kind of thing. The sooner you can get onto it, it makes that stepping stone a lot easier. It's still going to be, rocks and bumps and everything, but it will help you step into that a lot quicker than if you wait to the end, which I sort of did. I waited to the end, and then it's like, okay, now what? Now, I haven't got the skills. I'll just settle back into what I know and back into the comfort zone.
Definitely. Erica, so why should players start early? And secondly, why isn't time an excuse?
So I think two things. One is the value that you get, your personal brand has while you're an active player, I think is one reason to start building. And I mean, if you look at career development, I think you could also interchangeably use the word personal brand development. I mean, I think they two kind of go hand in hand, whether you're getting a job or starting your own business, the kind of, you're building a brand of your own. And I think there's so much value that comes from the connections you're making while you're playing your sport to, the value of the skills you're building while you're doing that. And so that kind of all goes together. And I think the second piece of that is really being able to, to spend that time proactively and put everything in place. I think it ties to reduced stress in the long run, which can ultimately help your performance in both on the field and outside of sports. And I don't have any research necessarily to back that up, but it just kind of makes sense when you think about it. And in the people I've seen working through all of this, if you're worried about what's coming next, and as you near the end of your career, there's a little bit of comfort that comes from knowing I've taken some steps towards it. I'm going to be okay, even if you don't know what that path may be. And I think that's really the message, that you don't have to know exactly what you're going to be doing, but just taking steps to start knowing that I'm laying the foundation for something that's going to be great to come, can be comforting. And I think can help you while you're playing and afterwards. And time as an excuse, I think that it's always an excuse that people use, and it's just not a good one. It's just everybody's busy. You're always going to be busy, and there's never really a good time to be proactive. I think as humans, being proactive is a challenge for all of us. Working on being fit or eating healthy when you don't have to do it. It's like I think naturally don't make some of these changes until we absolutely need to make a change, and it's, so how do you kind of get ahead of that curve in and of itself, would be kind of my response to that. So
I'll just take the next answer since I'm having to play host again. But what I really wanted to say is that you guys gave some great points. And one of the things that as athletes, we don't realize at the time that we're playing is that we're going to be ex-athletes a lot longer than we're going to be professional athletes. And I'm married to a former American football player, where even in that career where they make millions and millions of dollars, and you think that, oh yes, I'm going to play and I'm going to make all this money and then I'm going to spend the rest of my life golfing. It doesn't work like that.
no.
Even if you have the money and the resources, you're still going to need to do something with the rest of your life. So money is not an excuse. Time is not an excuse. The more you rely on what you're doing currently as an athlete, that should sort of be a red flag or a sign that you should start thinking, what should I be doing? If you're thinking like, I'm set, this is the rest of my life, that should be kind of a little ring, a bell, and say, oh, okay, let's see, I can't get complacent on this path. I need to be thinking about other alternatives.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so I'm back.
Hi.
Oh, internet's a beautiful and disastrous thing. So great conversation so far. I just want to remind everybody out there, we're wrapping up here soon, 7 minutes to go. This topic about transitioning after sport, I think that it's key to take away that one of the biggest lessons is that you should be preparing to transition, not just transitioning. Like, oh, I'm retired or I'm injured and I can't play anymore. Life starts, the dream is over. But really, if you can build a life, or the lessons that I've been taking away from what you ladies have been speaking about, is that you can build a life that you enjoy, no matter whether you're playing sport or you're out of sport, or if you're balancing both. Like, for instance, I have my agency and I have the projects that I'm doing like this, and I'm playing in Finland. I play for the national team, and I've been balancing this for the last, 7 years. And at first it was crazy, like, woo, crazy. But you learn and you adapt, and you can only adapt. And I want people to remember this when you get out of your comfort zone. You've got to get out of your comfort zone just a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to get out too far, because then you're going to be in over your head and you're going to drown, figuratively, not literally. And you want to be comfortably challenged, let's say. But if you want to get exponential growth, then challenge yourself on a daily basis. So lots of good lessons here. Did everybody get to answer that last question?
Yes.
I fumbled to get back in here. Okay. I guess then let's wrap up with this. Let's take about a minute each to talk about really your advice to the younger yous, let's say, when you were 17, 18, when you were going into sport and you knew this is taking off for me, I'm going to do it. Lina, you were going to America and you're like, whoa, I'm going to America. I'm doing this thing, playing volleyball. And what you would say to yourself now that you know everything you know, and starting with Annette, you take that away. I'm going to jump out, and hopefully Susan can jump in here.
Yes, advice to my younger self. It would be to it'd actually be advice to really dare to dream and really think about what it is you really, really want, and not to sort of think about, okay, what should I do, or what is possible. To step into what, if I could do anything, what is it I really want to do, and then go for it. If there's any, be aware of any excuses that come up for not doing it, and address them. It's like, realize that that's your own limitations of thinking of not doing it. But most of all, my motto is dare to dream, believe, and make it happen. And so you've got, that's how you achieved your Olympic, for me, it was an Olympic dream. Whatever sporting dream is, that when you were young, you got it, and you pursued it. And so take that again, that essence of who you are, and you've got it, to take that into a life beyond sport. Dare to dream, believe, and make it happen.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that, Annette. And Erica, why don't you take it away?
I think if I could give advice, it would just be a lot of what Annette said, but just being able to believe in that confidence you have as an athlete is that it can be there and it's still there outside of the sport, and being able to allow yourself to explore and remove the shoulds of what should I be doing and what should I be getting my degree in, or, is that something that, even thinking about what aligns with my values, I think, and where I'm passionate about, those pieces didn't come for me till I'd already had a career in marketing, and wasn't my passion, and it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And I think I know deep down in my gut, and I knew it in college when I was picking my major, that it wasn't the right one, but it was a better fit, or it was what I should be doing, whatever it is, But I think really listening to your gut and trusting yourself and having the confidence to follow that through can really make all the difference, especially when it comes to, picking that path for later in life. And I think that in my mind is kind of what it boils down to.
Thank you, Erica. And finally, but not least, Lina.
Yeah, Erica, that's great. I can give you a very quick example of my sister, who actually started school university when she was 16 years old, and everybody was telling her she wanted to study astronomy. But of course, that's kind of a thing that you don't do. You just dream about. You're now to become an astronomer. So she graduated with 2 degrees, international relations and business administration. She was extremely, extremely bright, only to have a professional sports career. And then even after that, realized, I really want to be an astronomer. That's what I want to be. So she went back to school, studied all the math and physics, and now she's getting her PhD in astrophysics, which, just speaks to your point, is that really find out what's important to you. So one of the things that I would say and give advice is think about when you're dreaming. Whose dream are you fulfilling? Is this your dream? Is this something that was put on you by society or your family or some sort of other expectation? So find out really whose dream are you fulfilling, and find out what your dream is, what's important to you, what your values are. And then figure out a career path that can match that for the rest of your life, and be open to change. Know that every step of your experience is taking you further down the road of where you need to be.
I love it, ladies. Thank you so much. That's incredible advice. And I just want to end on the note of saying, first of all, thank you all so very, very much. It's an honor, really, to be listening and be speaking with you all. I mean, Olympians and people who have moved and changed their lives for, their dreams and to do what they want to do, and they've been successful at that. Whatever your definition of success is, because that's different for everyone. But I want to just say to everybody out there about dreams and building towards some vision. Young athletes, if you're listening, start planning for your vision now. What kind of life? Your vision is, what life do you want to live? Where are you? What are you doing? What kind of family do you have? Are you working a job all the time? Or are you building a business all the time? Are you doing it like part of the time? Do you have passions? What are they? Paint that picture in your head, and then work backwards from that to build up to get to that stage. And if you ever find yourself working towards building someone else's dream and you don't like it, pivot. It's okay. Entrepreneurs know this. You have to learn how to pivot. As an athlete, if something's not working, if I'm trying to hit a ball against the block and it's not working, I've got to figure out a different way to get around that block. Sorry for the volleyball analogy, but I hope that helps. Thank you, everybody that listened. Make sure you share this out. Give props for the last 5 seconds or so to the speakers you loved here. And we'll welcome you back tomorrow. The link is in the side there. We'll do a recap tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Central European Time. That's London and Rome. And we hope to see you all there. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Susan.
Yes, thank you so much, Susan. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening. And don't forget, share it out. Share it out. Share that knowledge. Bye-bye.